Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Talking Tongue, the weekly quarantine show where I get to talk to my friends near and far to talk about the cinematic events of the year. Could you call this movie that? I'm not sure.
Maybe.
They were pitching it like that, but after watching it, I don't know. Well, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll see. I'm really excited because this guest that I'm talking to today has been in the pod cavern quite a bit, but it's been a hot minute since he's been here for Talking Tongue. I think the last time he was on the show was when we had like the old format, your grandpa's format, where I live streamed on Facebook and try to do audience interactions. And that feels like a lifetime ago, truly. I'm talking to Pull the Plugs, Justin Godelie, everyone. Big Dick Godelie. Hello.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for using my legal name there. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Justin, this is episode 99 of Talking Tongue.
Holy shit. That's amazing. I can definitely attest that the last time I was on, we were definitely doing the live stream on Facebook, and it was a much different show. A much more different show.
It was a different show.
Not in a bad or good way, just different. Yeah.
Like it was like the same in the way that like we still talked about the news sort of, and we talked about a movie. Actually, I think we talked about 3 movies, which is insane. Yeah. That's not enough time.
Why did we do that?
Why did I do that? I was just so and then I'm like, you know what's a good idea? To make the show weekly. That'll save me a ton of time. And now I'm already thinking about episode 100 and people are like, what are you going to do for that? And I'm like, I honestly have no idea, but I have to make it stupid, right?
That's the thing. You need to have like a special event. You need like prizes and you need a whole thing. I'm making a thing for you here, Tuong. You got to do this.
That's, I refuse.
Okay. Whatever. Yeah. Live your life, I guess.
I'll let you know what I do for the episode 100 when the day of the recording, I will figure out what I'm doing for episode 100. But Justin, before we get into it, since it's been a while since you've stepped foot on Talking Tongue, like you've been on Ranked many times, and we've been Cinema Saves the World together and all this other stuff. But if the people out there who only listen exclusively to Talking Tongue, which I don't know how many people are out there that do that, but
it's gotta be somebody. It's gotta be somebody at least.
It has to be. Our audience is at least, I'm going to round down, but at least 50K on Talking Tongue. So I assume at least, 5 of them exclusively listen to this,
Right. Yeah. Okay. Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. So anyways,
I love your confidence.
For those 5 people out there, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Justin Big Dick Godelie. Now that's the nickname is not my choice. I want to point that out because that sounds super conceited.
Yeah.
You came up with it, and I don't really know where it came from. Like I don't know, but I mean, it doesn't matter.
We were in person. Your wife was there. I was trying to get a laugh out of her, and I also stared down at your pants as I was saying it. So I'm like, it's probably true.
Look, there's a reason why she's put up with my nonsense.
Yep. And me too.
And it ain't my personality.
Right.
Anyway. Yeah. So I co-host and produce another podcast called Pull the Plug. It's a weekly show. You can check it out. We'll talk about that later. And oh man, what's new? Well, this is big. Recently me and my wife announced that we're pregnant with our second child, which is huge news.
That is huge news. And I don't think we've talked about, actually, you know what? I was going to say, we've never talked about babies in the intro before, but we did because our pal, Dan Forrester, spent the intro of our Talking Tongue episode talking about a terrible movie, Venom 2. Just absolute garbage.
I love that episode, by the way. You could sense the vitriol that you had. Like just
every time I mention the words Venom 2, my vein pops in my brain. But anyways, Dan talked about like parenthood and fatherhood, but you're in a little different situation because you've been doing it for a while. You were trying to figure it out as a parent for, a good long while with your first kid, but now the second one's coming and everything changes again.
Everything changes again. Yeah, my son is like, he's about 2.5. We'll just kind of round it. And and my daughter so that's a crazy thing too. It's a daughter. Like we're going to have one of each, which is kind of mind blowing.
Is it your family? I could be making this up, but isn't your family famously just a lot of men.
Yes, it is. And it's weird. Like we looked at like kind of, I hate this turn of phrase because it sounds so gross, but the only way I can describe it is like my like direct bloodline, I guess. Like it's been, there's so few girls, like it's all boys in the family. So, you know, when we found out we were pregnant with our first kid, we were just like, oh, well, it's obviously going to be a boy. And it turned out to be a boy. And then as soon as we got pregnant with the second kid, everyone kept saying, okay, well, now you're going to have a girl. And I was convinced, no, like I don't have that capability to make a female.
The Godelies have one specialty seed.
yeah, we don't have that other piece over there. Yeah. Turns out we do. So yeah, that's going to introduce a whole another level of challenges because not only is it a second kid while raising a toddler, but also every kid is different. So even if it was another boy, to say that we've got experience with a boy doesn't really matter, like, because every kid's going to be different, but it's especially doesn't matter because now it's a girl. So all the shit that you kind of learned about doesn't really there's not a lot that you can carry over. Like a lot of it is very different, and that's going to be a big adjustment for us, but we're excited. It's going to be cool.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. I'm excited for you guys. And yeah, there has to be a difference. Of course, there's going to be a difference between the two. And like, you're also a dog parent too. So you've recently done that too. You're adding all of it to your plate.
We're fucking stupid, I think. we had the kid and he's amazing. And then when he was a toddler, like he had just turned 2 and we're like, we should get a puppy because that's a smart thing you should do. Spoiler alert. If you're out there and you've got a kid, or you got a kid that's going to be a toddler and you're kind of toying with the idea of getting a dog, don't do it.
Yeah. Has that been hard?
Yeah, it's been very hard. Like I love the dog. She's awesome, but it's taken a lot of work and patience and mental fortitude to get there. Because there's a lot of instances where just like, we should just probably get rid of this fucking dog.
Yeah. But then you get the cuddles at nighttime and all that other stuff. And you're like, okay, we'll keep you for one more day, but watch out.
There were legitimately, and I'm not ashamed to say this, a few days where the only saving grace for the dog was the fact that our son loves her so much. And it was like, okay, well, we can't take her away now. I'm just going to have to suffer through this. And she's great now. It's all good. But
she's literally on your lap right now.
She's literally on my lap right now because she can't be that far away from me. But it's a lot, man. Like people like to say like, oh, being a pet parent is not like being a kid parent, which I kind of disagree with. Like each has its own set of challenges and whatnot. But if you got to combine the two, just think better. Don't do it.
That's so interesting. Think better than Justin.
Think better than me, which frankly is not that difficult. But
yeah, I always have jokingly said, because I don't have a kid, but with Captain Meatball, he was such a huge, huge challenge in the first year. And he's definitely still a challenge, but like not as much as the first year. And I've always said it directly to parents with a straight face. Raising a dog is harder than raising a child. And they've always hated that response.
Oh yeah. Every like, yeah, parent of a kid is just like, you asshole. What are you talking about?
I don't know why I egged people on like that. Like, I know that's funny. Not exactly true, but raising a dog can be pretty fucking hard.
Absolutely it can be. It can be. And we were really lucky with our first kid. He's awesome. He's like super chill. He made parenting look easy. It's just like, this is it. This is all we got to deal with. And I guarantee as soon as the second kid comes along, we're just gonna be like, fuck, pulling our hair out.
Yeah. That's okay. We'll get through it together. And yeah, maybe the whole idea is your second kid's going to be a podcast producer, right? Your first one, podcast host, second one, podcast producer. And then you just have to be the talent.
Exactly. It's just content creation is what I'm doing. And I think that's a healthy mentality to have.
Yeah. We're terrible people. So let's move on to the news of the week. Let's talk about some news of the week that I found on IGN.com. Just some fluff pieces like Vin Diesel to Dwayne Johnson the other day said, I say this out of love, ... but you must show up for Fast and Furious 10. There's a whole like post about this where Vin Diesel's like, my little brother, Dwayne Johnson. And it's like, oh man, I feel like it's an insult calling someone your little brother.
Yeah, it definitely is. Even if they actually are your little brother, you just don't say that. You just say brother.
Right. It's just like, hey, Pipsqueak, I made you into what you are. Anyways, it was a whole like Instagram post where Vin Diesel was like, I know we've had our beef in the past that we've squashed and then reignited and then squashed again. And I'm not sure where it's at, but obviously it's still going. Mm-hmm. And Vin Diesel really needs Dwayne Johnson to be cooperative and come back as Hob. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's Hob. I don't know. I stopped watching after like Fast 2, I think. Like I don't like I have not seen any of these, but like Fast 10 is supposed to be the finale, right? Like that's and it's not going to be.
It's not going to be, but you'd like these movies. You'd like these movies.
I'm sure it would. It's just it's popcorn nonsense, but and I don't say that in a negative way. Like those have merit, but I can't be bothered. There's so many other movies to see.
I understand. It's after like Fast 5 where it gets good, quote unquote. And then even the newest one, it's like, okay, the thing that they leaned on the most after 5 was like how ridiculous can things get? How like insane, like I think Fast 4 or whatever it was called was very serious. And you're like, that's not what I want. But now it's super stupid. Like they go to space in the last movie.
Yeah. Okay. I'm in for that. I want that.
They maybe somehow like able to drift their space car somehow. That it's made out of like just junk parts. So it has no business being in space. Like, how did they get it up there? And then they like drive into like a satellite or something like that. And they still live. They're fine. They're completely fine.
I this is a revelation to me right now, what you're saying, because I've purposely stay away from it because I know I feel like I would just get sucked into it, be like sucked into the nonsense of it. So maybe I need to do a marathon. Maybe that's our next Cinema Saves the World Tongue. That's too many movies. That's though.
9 movies.
I can't do that. That's over a week.
Might I remind you, you have a second child coming along the way.
All right.
Right. You shouldn't do this.
Man, no.
Or we do it anyways. Maybe we should do it. I don't know. For those of you who don't know, Justin and I do Cinema Saves the World, which is a charity movie marathon show we've done for the last few years now, where we raise I'm jinxing myself, but we've raised a significant amount of money for worthy causes just because Justin and I wanted to watch movies together. Then we're like, we should probably do this for a good reason and not just because like we want to do it.
Somebody needs to benefit because there's a few people who are not benefiting from it, primarily our partners. And so we need to give back somehow. And for the amount of nonsense that we do on those shows and how little effort, frankly, goes into like on our part. We've been very lucky to raise a bunch of money for some really great organizations. So let's do it again.
We should do it again. Oh, we will definitely do it again, but I'll just tell the audience here. The first marathon we did together was the Lord of the Rings extended version, and we didn't do it for charity. We just live streamed ourselves watching Lord of the Rings, where people at home could not hear the audio for it. They were just watching us watch the movie. And it was like, wow, people are really bored right now if they're tuning in.
Yeah, those guys look tired was a lot of the comments.
The next news story that I have for you here is, let's see, Squid Game creator confirms season 2 is on its way. I don't think you watched that show, right?
I haven't watched it, though I know a lot of people are big fans and are super happy about this news. So, I mean, I'm happy for them. Somebody mentioned to me that they watched it and didn't care for it at all. I can't remember who that was, but it surprised me because everyone I hear about it saying, "Oh, it's awesome."
It is awesome. It is awesome. I don't think it sticks the landing, but it's still awesome. And the people who say otherwise are just like those people that just want to be different, you know?
Contrarians, yeah. Is it not that this matters? Is it subtitled?
Yep. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay.
There's different languages you can do, but I did it the subtitles, the original language, because I like hearing their original voice actors like portray.
I agree. I think you get the proper emotions emoted when they're saying the lines. Like even though you don't necessarily understand them, you can feel at least the emotions in them. Agreed. So I like that. Okay, cool.
The only thing I'm afraid of with a season 2, and like whatever, it's TV, so who cares? But like you have juggernaut properties like Stranger Things comes out season 1. It's the biggest thing ever. Let's just say like Back with Orange is the New Black, even like all these like huge juggernaut shows, and then season 2 comes along and then it just kind of like whiffs, you know.
It seems to just kind of down just a little bit. Yeah.
And then you're like, maybe it didn't need a season 2. Remember when we all asked for a season 2? We were wrong.
I feel like the English get this really right, like people from Britain, because they have shows that's like, no, we know we're doing it for 2-3 seasons and then that's it. You want more? Too bad. Like I really like that finality of things of like, no, we know this story. This is what we're doing, and it's going to take 2 seasons to sell it. And then once it's done, it's done. And if you want more, well, write fan fiction. I genuinely really like that. I like that it has a finality to a lot of things. So when you kind of force this like sequel just because it's super popular, and I get that mentality, but you're kind of forcing the sequel to be like, well, okay, people really like this. Let's come up with something that is new, but also kind of reflects it just doesn't work a lot of times.
It's not on us to do that. Like the writer director, Hwang Dong-hyuk, they put like Squid Game was been in production for years, like over a decade before it got approved by Netflix to like do a thing. So now you got a season 2 coming, and the writer director, like, I'm just trying to say, like, they made this story 10 years ago. Now they're like, hey, you got pressure to make another one. Like, I don't know, let's just say in a year or 2. It's like, that seems like a lot of work.
That's pressure. That's pressure that you don't want to put on a creator, I think.
But obviously, Squid Game is actually the biggest Netflix anything ever. Like that's proven. It's crazy. It's wild. They've made so much money off of it. So as a writer director, there's the conflicting thing of like, hey man, like, I don't know if I can be able to put out like a season 2, and then Netflix shows like this huge check. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll fart one out.
I could probably think of something.
The last news story that I have for you here before we get into the movie, which is Henry Cavill still wants to play Superman. The quote is, the cape is still in the closet. Thoughts?
I love it. I genuinely love it. I think despite all of the negative focus on most, let's be honest, of the DC EU and the DC kind of movie universe, I think Henry Cavill's casting as Superman is great. I think he does a really fantastic job with what he's been given. I think the main kind of issue is the scripts that he's been given for his movies are not great, and they don't showcase what, in my mind, Superman should be. But as far as the look of a character and the physique of a character, because let's be honest, like he's great. I love Henry Cavill. He's super charming too, and I love how he genuinely likes being Superman, and he likes being in these like nerdy properties. Like he likes being Superman. He likes being in The Witcher. He like I really like.
He builds computers.
He builds computers.
He paints Warhammer figurines. Like that's. And he's hot.
That's rad. And he's hot.
So like, it's not fair to us.
Yeah. I like it. I want a good Superman movie. Like Superman has not really had a good movie representation of him.
Yeah. Some may argue that the old movies are. I'll be honest, I don't even know if I've seen those old Superman movies, but
if I have, it's been years. Yeah.
And do they age as well now? Like they could be, I know there's iconic ones, but are they still good? Question mark. People let me know. I if you think it's worth for me to go back and watch these Superman films, I'll do it. But I know it's going to have the worst CG, so it's going to take me out of it.
There's a panel, and this is not my original thought. I heard this somewhere else. I can't remember where, but there's a panel in a Superman comic that perfectly describes and articulates what Superman is about, which is like this bastion of hope, this not necessarily ideal, but he wants to be an ideal. And it's the scene of like this kid who's like on the edge of like a building or whatever. And this kid wants to like jump, and Superman comes up and like just sits down next to this kid and starts talking to them. And he's like, oh, well, I can just jump and you'll catch me. And he's like, no, I won't jump and catch you. I just want to sit here and talk to you and tell you that whatever you're going through, it's all good. You know, all that, the kind of stuff that you tell somebody in that position. And it's this perfect embodiment of what Superman should be. Like, yeah, he's punching gods and he's taking out dark side and whatever. But that's what Superman is. And we have not seen that in a Superman movie. And it's astounding that somebody hasn't gotten it right yet.
It's insane. It really is.
He's such a beloved character. And I'll be perfectly honest, there are aspects of a lot of the DCEU movies that I do like. And I know that's not the most popular opinion, but there are certain aspects of them that I really do like. But they just haven't nailed Superman. And I don't know. I'm not saying I could do it. But there's a lot more smarter people out there and smarter writers out there that could do this. I just don't know why it hasn't happened.
You know what's annoying? I think that a lot of the DCEU and the animated stuff and the video games and stuff have like leaned harder on this idea that what if Superman was evil? And I think that was a really cool concept once you have established Superman and all the good he's done. But now everyone's just like, no, make Superman evil. And it's just like, you haven't even given me anything when he's good. Like,
it's a great point.
Why should I care that he's evil? Because I haven't seen him like be actually great.
You need that like dichotomy. Like you need to see like why it's so frankly terrifying if Superman was evil. But like if you just be like, oh yeah, Superman's evil. Like I even somebody who doesn't know who Superman is just like, oh yeah, he's an alien who flies around and he's really strong. The notion that he's evil, oh yeah, that's an interesting concept, but it's been done like 17 times already.
So many
different mediums.
Yeah.
But I've yet to see a really good live action representation of it.
Yep. So the Snyder cut, they filmed a scene teasing out like Injustice Superman. It's when he becomes evil. So they do that. There's a new Suicide Squad game coming out soon where they are toying with the idea with an evil Superman again. Mm-hmm. And then they have Injustice. And they already made the Injustice animated film, I'm pretty sure. Yep. And that's the whole idea with that too. It's just give me a good one.
just there's a great comic run, and then we can move on to the next thing. But there's a great comic run, Superman All-Star. Just make that.
Yeah.
Just do that.
It's so good. That's so good. Good pull.
It's so good. Yeah. Just do that. Anyway, I'm losing my mind over here.
Okay. Before we get into the movie, I know I said I didn't have any more news stories, but this ties into it. MCU movies are getting an IMAX format on Disney Plus. Now, as of this recording, Disney Plus Day is on November 12th. So that's tomorrow for us. And they're dropping a bunch of different stuff on that, which I'm not privy to because we're not recording on that day. But MC Movies getting an IMAX format on Disney Plus. That's rad.
That's cool. I like that.
I like it. Makes me want to like get better speakers in the house and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like I know it's intended to basically just make me want to buy a new TV and speaker system, which I'm not going to do, but I like that. I like that is now a thing that I like that the company's doing that because they know like people still like those older MCU movies and want to watch them in the best resolution with the best sound and all this stuff. And people have capabilities to do this at home. So just give it to them. And you make then Disney Plus more appealing. It's just like, oh, I don't have to go out and I don't have to buy like the 4K Blu-ray for this. I can just stream it. If I got a decent internet connection, I can just stream it. Great. Awesome. I love it. I think it's great.
Me too. And the first movie that they're going to have up there is they have a bunch of different like Marvel movies, but Shang-Chi obviously coming out this weekend. Woo-hoo. Amazing. Can't wait. That's going to be amazing. That again. Oh, I'm so excited. But before we talk, actually, we're not going to talk about because I've already talked about Shang-Chi to death in other episodes. So we're not going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about the movie that comes out after that we've both seen together. Justin, do you want to introduce it for the people at home?
Yeah, today we're going to be chatting a little bit about Marvel's newest foray, the movie that's going to change the Marvel universe forever. Maybe the Eternals.
We're Eternals. We came here 7,000 years ago to protect humans from the deviants.
Why didn't you guys help fight Thanos? Or any war, or all the other terrible things throughout history?
We were instructed not to interfere in any human conflicts unless deviants are involved.
By who?
I think it will. Spoilers. I think it will change the universe forever.
Yeah, it probably will. But it's just, sorry. The way I kind of said that was just like, I've got such negative connotations towards the film, and we can talk, we'll get into this, but my initial reaction was lower than how I feel about it now.
Me too. And we will talk about this. Before we do, though, let's talk about the general. We will spoil Marvel's Eternals, by the way. We might not touch everything, but Justin and I have been holding this in together since we've watched it together. We watched it and we started saying stuff to each other, and some stuff slipped out, but the others were like, no, save it. Save it for Talking Tongue. Save it, which is hilarious. But let's talk about the general setup. Do you want to just give us like the synopsis of Eternals?
Okay, here we go. So you got these guys, they're Eternals, and they're like they're already a team of people who travel to Earth. They're sent to Earth by the big beings up in the sky called Celestials, who are kind of like gods in the Marvel universe. And they send the Eternals to Earth because to help humans out, because they're sent to Earth in like prehistoric times, like cavemen times. And they're meant to like not only help humans advance and evolve and whatnot, but also to protect the humans from another kind of the Mirror's Edge. Yeah. Another threat, the Mirror's Edge of the Eternals, which is called the Deviants, who are these big, scary monsters. Frankly, a little generic looking, but anyway. And throughout I think it's in the movie, I think it's like 7,000 years or whatever, they're with humans, protecting them from the Deviants, helping them evolve and introducing new technologies and whatnot. And then it brings us to the present day, because they think that the Deviants have been taken care of, and they're just waiting to be called back from their mission by the Celestials. And then the Deviants show up again. And that's kind of where the movie is like, really like, okay, here we're going sort of thing. So how did I do?
That's good. That's really good. It
felt like a lot.
No, what you've just said is just a drop in the bucket to how much this movie jam packs in. So this movie is like a 2-hour and 40-minute film. And I say film kind of like pretentiously because it's directed and written by Academy Award winning director Chloe Zhao. And you can tell that this movie is a lot different than the other Marvel movies that's come before it. Yeah. And after watching it, I think that's very true. Different is not a bad thing. I think different is interesting, and it is certainly makes a lot of choices and is very ambitious. I think it whiffs on a couple things, but it does try to tell one cohesive story that you really don't need to see all the Marvel movies before that to understand this movie.
No, you really don't. And that is to its credit, because I think one of the criticisms that somebody kind of coming into the MCU right now outside of Eternals would be like, you don't have to see all of the films, obviously, but you do kind of have to have a somewhat general idea of what's come before. And the Eternals, there's like a small aspect to it, but other than that, you don't really need that.
Yeah,
which is nice.
References to Thanos snap. There's references to like Steve Rogers and Iron Man, but that's about it. And honestly, for the people who haven't seen those other Marvel movies, you probably know who Thanos is. He's turned into a giant meme. People know Thanos. People know who Captain America is and the Iron Man. Like, that's all they've really mentioned in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You did mention that it's very different, and in a lot of ways it is. Like cinematically, like just how it's shot, it's so goddamn beautiful. Like I mean that. But there's been a lot of people saying like it's such a different type of Marvel movie, and I kind of don't agree.
Oh, interesting.
In the sense of like the pacing, and not necessarily the pacing, because the pacing is probably one of the things I really don't care about this movie a lot about. But the structure of the movie, as far as following similar other Marvel movies, as far as you have a hero or a team of heroes, they do a thing, then they have a conflict, and then they do their own thing, and then they kind of come together and they defeat the bigger conflict sort of thing. In the very general sense of that structure, it follows that essentially to a T. And and I'm not saying I have an improvement for that, because I don't, but in that regard, it is very similar to a lot of the other Marvel movies that you've seen. as far as conflict and management and team building and all that kind of team dynamics and things like that.
That's true.
But as far as how that movie is presented to you and how the story is presented to you, I really loved it. I loved the first thing you will see when you'll notice when you see this film. And I like that you use the word film because it's a little bit more of an auteur kind of vibe to it, is the look of it. Like, they went all out with not necessarily just the visual effects, though they did, but just the way that it's shot and the structure of the shots that they've included in this film. It's astounding, but also the sound design. And I think I mentioned this to you when we were leaving. It's just like, I really liked the score and the sound design, and the sound effects that were in there were very different because you're dealing with a lot of different aspects of the Marvel universe, which we haven't seen before. So all this stuff is like very new. So they kind of had to like come up with new sounds and new techniques to showcase that. And I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, I agree. The music is a very compelling part of this, and a lot of establishing shots and very wide, pretty shots happen during this movie. And I think that just contributes to its film-like look to it. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit more about oh man, there's so many characters in this movie. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to hit every single one of them, but
we won't. Let's try to chat about them because I have a thought on the characters, but
okay,
you go first.
We have a wide array of characters. I think there's 7 Eternals or something like that. Yeah. I think, and it's a lot. And I think there is a level of, oh man, that's a lot to keep track of and learn their like wants and needs and like their personalities. I feel as though they mostly got there with all their characters. I definitely surprisingly remembered all of their names by the end of the movie, which I wasn't expecting because like they have not their names aren't Steve. Their name is
Steve and Tony,
Carol, and like all this other stuff. You got like Thena, Druig, Fastos, Kingo, like Gilgamesh, like all these names that you're like, I don't know how I'm going to keep this together. And I did somehow.
That's well done.
Yeah. Erisham, which is like, that's a weird name to like throw on people. Mm-hmm. And I think they mostly got the way, like character development wise, it made sense. But at the same time, it's a lot of characters to jam pack in one movie and care about every single one of them. And I don't think I actually did care about all of them by the end of it.
No, I would 100% agree with you. I think for the most part, I agree. They did a pretty decent job at fleshing out the characters that you at least kind of see the most and have the most to do. But I like honest, and this is kind of my note, like, I feel like you could combine some of the characters together. And I know this is going against like you're taking them from the comic sort of thing, but the MCU has done that for the entire run. Like they are changing aspects to it. Combine some of these characters together to lessen like the character load. Like you don't need 7 Eternals for this movie. I don't have a problem with having 7 characters, but you don't need them. And when you have a movie that is this, and this word will get brought up a lot, dense, that's one of those things that if you combine 1 or 2 of these characters together into a total of 5 characters even, then suddenly you're given a little bit more time or a little bit more opportunity to flesh out strengths and weaknesses and motivations and stuff like that. Like it would also kind of like streamline the plot a little bit. Yeah, I think so, because there's not a lot of meandering, but there's a lot of just like, okay, yeah, now we got to talk about this guy. Okay, now we got to talk about her. And even with all of the character development, there's one character in particular who we don't get a lot of development with at all. And I think is it Makari, the deaf one? The Flash. Yeah. Yeah, like I love that character. I love her power set. I love her relationship with Druig. I love all of that, but I didn't see enough of that.
Yeah, it's funny because she's quoted as the best, and I agree. Like, I think she's awesome, but You're right. It's like, what's her deal besides being like just cool and fast? And I love that they introduced, a deaf character that uses sign language in the MCU. Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's super cool, important for film and representation, all this other stuff. But you're right. I actually don't know her wants and needs and any of that, right? I know that she likes Druig in maybe a romantic way. And I know she kicks ass and is really fast. So that's it. Right?
Yeah, like that's all you get. And it seems disjointed or disproportionate as far as character development when we've been given so much character development to somebody like Kingo. Like, I love Kingo. I love Kumail Nanjiani. Like, I love everything. Like, I really enjoy that character. But there's a disproportionate amount of character development for a character like Kingo compared to Makari in this film. And I feel like they could have done something better with that character, showcase her abilities more. Or why was she, spoiler alert a little bit, why was she in the ship at the end? Like, what was she doing there? Like, why was she there? Like, I want to, like, I have that genuine question that wasn't answered, and no one seemed to care the characters didn't seem to care either. She's like, oh yeah, here she is.
Yeah, that was weird. That's the thing, is like, this movie does so much and then kind of skims or skips over a few like details that you want to know about. This movie is dense. Like, 2 hours and 40 minutes is not a joke. But yeah, it's so weird seeing like some parts of this movie being like, well, how come they didn't spend enough time with, maybe we talk about like spoilers now. So if you haven't like watch Eternals yet and you're really dying to watch it, maybe pause this now and come back to it. But why didn't they spend enough time with the deviants in this movie? You talk about the deviants the entire movie. You have a bad guy who's established in the comics that I'll admit, like, I've never read an Eternals comic, but Crow apparently is a very important Eternals villain. I didn't even know his name was Crow until like after I looked it up.
I didn't know until you said it just now.
It's crazy. And then they kind of just like, they forget about this red herring villain and move on to the true villain, which, again, spoilers, is Icarus. Like, Richard Madden's character is, I would consider, the real villain of the film. There's a impending threat that I wouldn't say is a villain, like the celestial being that they're trying to resurrect. Like, that's just happening. But Icarus is the one who's trying to stop them from it happening, you know?
I've like the deviants, they have the powers to like sucks. They kill some of the Eternals or whatever, and they suck the life force out of them and they gain their powers. And I'm just like, oh, sweet. Like, we're going to get a really cool development here where we're going to be able to like see some of this stuff and see maybe the deviants try to use some of the powers or whatever it is. But they just become self-aware and then they're murdered.
Yeah, I know.
They don't have personality or anything. It's like they had no ideas for the deviants, but they needed a villain till we got to the actual villain.
It's a red herring that, like, I don't mind that to be in movies, but it just seemed like a waste because they set up the deviants in the way they're like, hey, the deviants and the Eternals are not so different. You and I, we're actually kind of the same.
Yes.
But then they murder all the deviants and you're like, you know what would have been cool? If, as Richard Madden's flying away at the end, I know I'm skipping way ahead here, as he's flying into the sun, which is very cheesy because Icarus flying into the sun. Why doesn't like a deviant tentacle grab him, suck his powers out, and he's still dead? But like, now you got like a way beefier like deviant that's still looming, you know?
There's a story beat in this film where you essentially find out the Eternals have kind of been like duped, and maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit, but for this point, they get duped, but also the deviants kind of got duped as well. Like they're pawns in this kind of bigger game. And it would have been really cool. And it would have kind of given, I don't mind a red herring, but I'm still some like motivation and some like reason behind them. It would have been cool to see them like come to that realization or be like, oh, you know what? Maybe like you said, we're not so different from the Eternals. Maybe let's team up or figure this out. But nah, let's just cut their heads in half or something.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like I liked that scene, but it was like, it just felt lackluster in that regard. I sound like I'm shitting on this movie a lot. I quite enjoyed this movie.
I know there's a lot of weird stuff when I talk about this movie and I say, I like this movie with an asterisk. And as soon as I start talking about the asterisks, there's a lot of like, there's a list of things that I'm like, I wish they did this better, this better, this better, this better, this better. But at the same time, I still enjoyed the movie. And I talked about this with you, Justin. I've been thinking about this movie since we've watched it. Like, not as hard, like every single day. It's definitely tapered out a little bit. But I'm still like, at first, after we watched it, I'm like, that was good. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. And I still believe that. But I didn't want to see it again. Like I was like in no rush to see it, but now I'm like, maybe I would watch that again because
I now want to see it again. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like there's
I'm
so many things that at first I'm like I was turned off about, and I'm like, well, I feel like I enjoy a second viewing of this, right?
Yeah, I agree. We both left the film being like, it was good, but there was that tone in our voice. Like there's a little inflection there. And I agree. I haven't stopped really thinking about it since we saw it, but I want to go see it again, because not necessarily to like pick up on things that I missed, because I had to focus in this movie, so I don't think I missed anything, but just to like, I think properly enjoy it and take it all in and whatnot.
Yeah.
What are some of the things about the film that you did like, that you really did enjoy? Even if you want to like list them, I don't care. But like, I just want to hear about some of the things that you really enjoyed. I want to see.
I like the casting of this movie. I think that's great. I think I think Thena is amazing. Angelina Jolie's character is amazing. I think her character, and they spent a lot of time with her development and her badass weapon switching, that her just like, they just turn into whatever weapon she wants it to be. I'm like, that's freaking awesome. And I think I liked all the casting of the Eternals, to be honest. Like we have like Don Lee as Gilgamesh. I think he was really great. I was really sad for him to go, but I knew it was coming because I'm like, which character seems disposable here? Oh, it's the nice guy.
It's the nice guy who can punch real hard.
Yeah.
Like really, you've kind of got that power already in Icarus. So you kind of don't need that.
You don't need to double
badly.
up. Although when he slaps one of the deviants down afterwards, that was really cool.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I like Kumail's character a lot. I liked the comic relief Karen or whatever his name was.
That's one of my favorite characters in the film. I love that guy so much.
I don't think they overuse him. Some may say they might, but I think he like came in at the right time of the movie, gave us some of that Marvel humor that you don't really see in this film. I don't think it's mandatory that they put that Marvel humor into it. And I would also say that a lot of times when they make jokes in this movie, it feels almost out of place a lot of the time, except with Kumail's character and this Karen character. I think they make it feel like, oh yeah, this is still like part of this universe. But whenever like, I'm thinking about, there's a scene with Richard Madden and Gemma Chan where they're like at Phastos's place and they're like switching, like they're at the table and stuff like that. Something about like the almost forced humor that they're like, oh yeah, we got to put like a Marvel thing in here real quick. It just felt tonally off. It almost like he shouldn't have done it at all, you know?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can see that. Yeah.
I think that was, and I know you said things that I liked, but like, I think that was the thing that like really stood out to me, was whenever it really wanted to, like, it had to remind itself it was a Marvel movie, is when this movie starts to like feel not as strong. Because it certainly tried to go with a certain tone in the movie. And if they stuck with that the entire time, I think it would have been way more successful than them trying to like, you know, remind people that it's a Marvel movie by putting in these, again, forced humor bits.
Yeah. Like lean into the fact that this is very different and not a typical Marvel movie. Like you've got the characters to give you that humor when you need it, but you can lean into the fact that this is, there's 7,000-year-old beings. Like they're going to be kind of dour and serious, and that's fine. Like that's good. Like I like that. First, also, sorry, they're 7,000 years old and no one seems to have any clue what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, I know, it's true. It's like, what? Come on.
Like, so you've been on Earth for what's the kid? The Sprite. She's been on Earth for 7,000 years. She's had her power set for 7,000 years. And you see in the beginning of the film, she has to stay a kid. She looks like she's a kid. And she's on a date, and her power is to like project images of herself or other things. So she's projecting herself as like an older, like, you know, mid-20s woman out on a date. So when the guy leans over and grabs her, like tries to grab her hand, it like kind of fades away into like a ghost thing. And they make a joke like, oh, you must be really drunk or whatever. You've had 7,000 years to train and improve your powers, and you can't do something better there.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a minor thing, but I get it.
It's a minor thing, but it's just like every character in this movie is kind of stupid.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like,
for
figure
sure.
It out.
For being 7,000 years old or longer.
Like you've been here. You understand human like humanity and human thought and everything like that, because you've essentially molded us in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
You got to know what's going on here a little. Anyway, that's a gripe.
I want to go to the source material for a second. I know we're jumping all over the place. That's how I think. But
yeah.
Eternals is a Jack Kirby creation. Now, Jack Kirby's done a bunch of different stuff, like Captain America, and like a bunch of different Marvel comics in conjunction with like Stan Lee and all this other stuff. But this Eternals is strictly Jack Kirby. And you can feel that it doesn't feel like Spider-Man. It doesn't feel like Captain America. You know, it's weird. It deals with Celestials, for God's sake. And the movie is not shy about being like, this is what Celestials is, and all of this stuff, the creation of the universe. Are you ready for like a 5-minute straight info dump that will blow your mind? They do that in this movie.
They do that.
Yeah. And I bring that up because maybe the reason why it feels different is because it is different. Even in the comics, it feels different too. And I started dabbling a little bit with the comics, and some similarities is like, yeah, Eternals have been around forever, but in the movie, they're like synthetic robots, right? Whereas in the comics, they are actual beings, which I don't know if that matters too much, but like, yeah, they've been around forever in the comics, and they've been alive and well and all this stuff. Where in the comics, in the movie here, the robots that they get their like memory wiped before they go to the next planet to become a celestial, all that other nonsense.
Yeah. Because in this movie, we might as well just do this spoiler. In this movie, the way that you have a new celestial is you have a little egg in a planet, essentially, and then that egg feeds off of the life force of all of the inhabitants on that planet. And that's the reason why the Eternals have gone to Earth, is to protect humanity from the deviants, from killing them all, so that this celestial egg baby thing can essentially take all that energy, and then once it becomes grown enough, it emerges from the egg, destroys Earth, and now you have a new celestial. That's what the Eternals mission is to do. Only one of the Eternals knows that that's actually what's going to happen, and that's Icarus. And
Salma Hayek.
And Salma Hayek's character. Ajak. Which I don't like. I kind of like that. Like, I like that motivation. That's why the Eternals turn on the Celestials. Like, I like that. That's an interesting thing. Like, you've been here for 7,000 years. You've developed a connection with the inhabitants of this planet. Great. Why would the Celestials tell them though?
I guess they trust the leader of the.
But why?
I don't know. Maybe you need one person to be in the know. I don't know. I'm not a celestial. I have no idea. That's a good point. Otherwise, there's no movie, Justin. That's what happens.
That's a good point. But I did like that. Then there's that turn of now you kind of figure out, oh, Icarus is the villain. Sort of, like, you know, he has his motivation. Like, he's not a bad guy. He's just following his mission, sort of thing.
Yeah, he's like a very dedicated and loyal soldier who's blind to any other type of reasoning. It's like, you got to follow the Celestial. That's why we're here. But, you know, like, the Celestials are kind of right.
A little bit, because the Celestials, they're creating new life. Like, one planet destroyed could lead to 10 planets with
the whole
more
galaxy
life on
or
it,
whatever
right?
they
the whole
say.
Galaxy. So, like, they're not wrong, but it's because we're humans that we're just like, no.
We're like, no, well, I'm a human. I don't want to die for everyone else. That's very
my
human
planet.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about these other characters here. So I already gushed about Athena. We have Icarus, which talked about a little bit here. Gemma Chan is the character in this movie. She's the main character. She's the top billed character or actress in this movie. I think that's really awesome to have just a female Asian lead who's like, first at the top here. Yeah. She's okay. I liked her, but her character, like, I wish was more as well. Like, you get that she's a kind person and she's hesitant to become a leader, but like, I don't know. I think some of these other characters are actually a little bit more interesting than Cersei.
I would agree. They tried to give her a little bit of like character development and background as far as like she's addicted to her phone sort of thing. And it's like, you don't need that. Like, throw that out.
Yeah. That's a stupid.
It's like
almost joke. Like, it's not really that joke. Yeah. How do these 7,000-year-old beings not know what a phone is?
Right. Anyway, like Gemma Chan is great. She's awesome. But you could have done more with her character. But what she's been given is very similar to like the Henry Cavill thing with Superman. What she's been given, she does very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that.
Agreed. Yeah. I would also say like same with Richard Madden's character, who is, it's complicated because he's really good, but also like he's very like just mean mugging a lot of the movie too.
He seems a little one-dimensional.
And I think that's on purpose because
Yeah.
he's a very talented actor. But yeah, it's just like these more excitable or more interesting characters to watch on a big screen. Like I think Fastos, Kingo, those guys, Makari, much more interesting to watch, you know?
I think you mentioned Fastos. I think Fastos was my favorite because I think he, like, you kind of find out he's the guy who can like make just anything. Like he can design anything and whatnot. And I like seeing that power. I like that effect, like that gold line effect for their suits and what he's making. I think that looks really cool. I loved his reasoning for why he wants to, because he's left, like all the Eternals are split off and whatnot. And I like his reason as to why he's going back to it. It's just like, I've got a husband now. By the way, first openly gay character in the Marvel Universe. Awesome. Love it. And they didn't shy away from it. They didn't like, it not like a little peck on the cheek. Like, no, you got a kiss and awesome.
Do you know why like that? Sorry for a tangent here, but this is a perfect opportunity to say this is why this movie was banned in like many places around the world was because of that one kiss. And I'm glad the MCU did not take it out for that because that's ridiculous.
It's stupid. Yeah. Like you don't need to take that out. It's human beings, whatever. Like I like that they kept that in. Yeah. And I liked his motivation. Like he's got his husband and his kid there. And that's why he's coming back, because he's been reintroduced to why humanity needs to be saved, of the good in humanity. And I really liked his character. I thought he was powerful. He was also a little bit of comic relief, but he didn't feel forced. I don't think.
I agree with that.
I really enjoyed his character and all the design work that kind of went along with it. It was really cool.
I think a lot of the costumes in this movie are really rad as well. Yeah. Like they look cool as well. I think, yes, Fastos, I agree. Sprite has a lot of moments in this movie. She gets a ton of stuff to do in this movie. And I think they use her quite well. Although I wish they took some of her screen time because we kind of get it at some points and just give it to like some of these other characters like Makari. I'm going to talk about Druig for a second. I think his character is, I don't know, something about it. Like I like this actor. Like he's been in a lot of stuff. Barry Keoghan, I think his name is. And he has the power of mind control. And at some point he gets kind of like, wow, all these people are killing each other's genocide. We can't get involved because we're Eternals. Even we can't fight against Thanos. I'm sick of like not doing anything. And then he kind of like mind controls a bunch of people and does whatever he thinks is best, which feels like really white savior type of like whatever.
Yeah.
And then like you get that he kind of has like a heart, but he's always making that kind of like serious face all the time. And I actually don't feel like later they introduce that he's like a flirt with Makari and people are like shipping them too. And I'm like, we didn't even get enough of those two to really like ship them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really understand their like dynamics, except they kind of like talk to each other sometimes. And then even in like the final confrontation, I find he was pretty much not needed.
Yeah, kind of. Like he was there because they had a plan for how to use his power. And then Icarus shot him into the center of the earth.
And then he comes back and hits a rock over Sprite, you know?
By the way, the most unintentionally funny moment in the entire MCU was that moment right there.
So I was talking to a friend. He's going to love this. The friend of the show, Taylor Fleming. His theater apparently was laughing really loud during that moment, where I distinctively remember our theater not laughing, but being like kind of like a chuckle and then confused, being like, was that supposed to be funny?
Yeah. I remember that too. Yeah. It was definitely funny, but I don't think it was really intended to be this laugh out loud moment. Like it was so out of left field. Anyway. Yeah. It was so out of left field. It was weird.
This wasn't my idea, but Taylor was telling me the other day that they always have to nerf the mind controller because they're too powerful. So like it's a Professor X thing where they got to get rid of Professor X because otherwise there's no movie. So they're like, the mind control guy, he got shot to the center of the earth, and then maybe he's part of that whole beam thing that everyone like kind of floats in the air.
Yeah.
The unimind. So here's the thing that I have a gripe with, and I feel so bad for this movie because I'm not trying to gripe on everything, but it's just like it has so many good parts and then so many parts where I'm just like, come on, they write out Kumail Kingo out of the finale of the movie, or at least the final battle. Yeah,
he just goes away.
His reasoning, and it makes sense, is that he believes in the Celestials, but he doesn't want to fight his family, and he won't fight his family. And in any other movie, they would bring back Kingo in the final confrontation because like that makes sense, right? And I can also appreciate the decision of being like, no, he made his decision. He knows what he wants. So let's not have him. And that's what they decided to do. But in my mind, why wasn't Kingo like lifted in the air with the Unimind with everybody else when
wherever
Cersei
wherever he was, doesn't matter.
All I needed to see. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, this Celestial that they're trying to stop is a Celestial, this giant fucking ass big thing. They're going to need all of the Eternals to pitch in to stop it. So they could have had a scene where Kingo is hilariously filming a movie and then he's rising in the studio. And that's all they needed to
That's
show.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the gold lines or whatever start coming around him. And he's just like, oh, this is more than me sort of thing. Right. And there you have, suddenly you just kind of have a little bit of character development of like, oh, it's not just for me. Like, because he's like the Bollywood movie star sort of thing. That's all you need. And then it's at least a reference of just like, oh no, okay, we haven't I didn't have a fever dream and imagine Kumail Nanjiani in this film. Like it's
right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that is a weird thing that they just kind of ignored.
Yeah, they had so many other things to juggle that it just seems like a small thing that would have made the movie like a lot better in my mind, because it's just so weird not seeing one of the Eternals not involved whatsoever with the destruction of the planet.
just going off and not dealing with it at all. Yeah, it's an interesting choice. Yeah.
A few things I want to bring up. I know we're going a little long here, but there's few things that I need to bring up is this also has Marvel's first sex scene, which was very controversial and very much nothing in the movie. So I don't know why anybody's complaining about it.
Yeah, very, very. That's just boring. That's just boring sex right there. Like, I'm not saying you need to like see full Penno.
Yeah,
I'm not saying
anything like you're looking for reverse cowgirl.
Yeah, I just wanted, but if you're going to make kind of like a deal out of that sort of thing, like, there needs to be more to that scene. Like, I don't know. It's such a dull thing. That's just like, oh, they're naked in the desert. They've had sex or they're having sex, but are they though? They're just kind of laying in the sand. Like,
yeah. The thing is,
not
like,
a thing.
A lot of parents, protective parents and stuff, are scared. And I know I have a friend who covered their children's eyes in that moment. And I'm like, really? Like, okay. I mean, they're your children, but like, really? Because I think it's very important. Like that. This is why this movie's great too, because it brings diversity. It brings LGBTQ like awareness to this. It brings sex into this. Very important life shit that is just part of our world. Why do we have to shy away from sex when there's killing in these movies, when there's drinking in these movies, right? Like sex should be normalized and not like shied away from, and they very easily shown the most dull sex scene ever in a movie. And people are making a big deal out of it because they're like, that shouldn't be in my superhero movie. Get out of town. You barely even see their shoulders.
You see nothing. Not that you should see something, but it's not a point of concern in any way whatsoever. They
bring up that it exists. Like, you see like half of Richard Madden's back, maybe a little bit of Gemma Chan's, and very light thrusting, and then they come.
Yeah.
And then they're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
It's the most boring sex tape you could imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm watching it again and again in this GIF that I'm looking at right now.
It's on loop in my mind, man. It's on loop.
Last thing I want to bring up, not last thing, there's actually a few things. Last thing of this topic is Salma Hayek got signed for multiple Marvel movies. And she's dead. So that's interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I liked her character. I mean, Salma Hayek's awesome. I don't know how they're going to do that, but great. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's that, she's lived so long that I'm sure she'll come back in like flashbacks or something like that. Or if the Eternals or Celestials made a bunch of different robots, they probably made a lot of ones that look the same. So maybe you bring her back that way.
Yeah, they've like got a consciousness stored up that looks like Salma Hayek or something. Yeah, I could do it.
I think the big thing that we need to talk about are the 2 post-credit things. And we haven't said this name at all yet, but Kit Harington is in this movie as Dane Whitman. And you almost forget because there's so much going on in this movie. But this character in the comics is significant. And in the movie, he's just like a slight love interest. And also the last shot of the movie.
It's weird. Like I like that they included the character. But I didn't like how they had the character in there. I don't know. It just didn't seem. It wasn't bad. It just didn't seem to fully mesh properly with the rest of the film, sort of thing. But yeah, he plays. What's his name again? Dane. Is
it Dane or Dana? Whitman is the last name.
Dane Whitman, and he in the comics is the Black Knight.
Yeah,
who's got a sword that can do everything. It can cut through.
It's the ebony blade.
The ebony blade. Yeah, it can cut through like adamantium. So in the MCU, it'll cut through vibranium. That's really cool.
It can actually cut through like just anything. Cosmic or anything, magic, whatever. It's the most powerful weapon in the MCU, in the Marvel comics. It is stupid in the way that it's just like every single bad guy tries to get their hand on the ebony blade. And the thing is, it can get summoned like Mjolnir, but the downside is it makes you crazy. So
I love that. Great.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that introduction
I like the idea of it.
Yeah. Cool.
Like, so the last post-credit scene is you have Kit Harington's character be like, I'm going to open up this box that has the ebony blade, which is cool. But like, yeah, it's almost as if they didn't need to have that character in this movie because he's really barely involved. And you really don't like, it's supposed to be kind of like hey, as long as we're laying stuff on the table, and I know you're an Eternal, but I have the ebony blade. Like that's what he's trying to say at the end. Right. And it's like, well, I don't even know why you're in this movie because you barely do anything. Like, if you showed me some sort of like your capabilities, I guess, in this movie, then I can kind of see why you're here. Otherwise, the screen time of you in this movie feels like it can be better used somewhere else.
That's the thing. If they had tied in, like, again, even in a post-credit scene, like the blade was forged out of the goop from a Celestial or something. Yeah. Like you at least have that connection then to the story that you've just told, sort of thing. And I'm going to talk about Celestial goop in a little bit. But like tie it there's no relation besides his relationship with Cersei.
Yeah.
There's no connection to the rest of the movie for that character.
Yeah, he doesn't even barely talks to anybody else, right?
Yeah, it feels very disjointed and like almost forced. Like we need to put in the Black Knight because it's going to lead into this sort of thing later on. It just felt a little forced. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. And like I know some people out there are like, oh, I liked like the I guess the restraint that they put on themselves not to do too much with his character. But I would argue that like just don't have him in there. Like that's way better use of our screen time because like, yeah, it's just, I know in the comics, him and Cersei are a thing. So that's like, that's fair. Mm-hmm. But, if you're going to have him in here, at least let him do something a little bit more to like justify why he's here. Because he's there in the beginning of the movie and then he's there at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. Nowhere in between.
Yeah. No, like you get a missed call from him at some point. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of bothers me. And also you get at the very end, this post-credit scene bothers me because you get a voice that says something, Mr. Whitman, which is Kit Harington's character. And it's Mahershala Ali's voice as Blade. Now, nobody knew that it was Blade. So I think that's already a misfire on like what this is supposed to tease. Because I think all of us came out confused. We're like, whose voice was that? Which I think is what their goal was. But it's so much of like a tease that like it's just confusing. There's no, if you showed me like Blade's sunglasses or like a trench coat or just a sword on someone's back, that's enough to tease me that was Blade. I had to look up that was Blade.
Well, that's the thing. When after the movie came out, like director Chloe Zhao got like asked like who's that character, and she had to confirm, oh no, it's Blade. It's Mahershala Ali as Blade. That's too little of a tease. Like you need to include you don't want the director to come out and say, oh, this is what that was, because you haven't done a good job then in the movie of explaining what that is.
Yeah. I think about like post-credit scenes that show you like the Infinity Gauntlet, that show you Thor's hammer, show you a thing. You don't have to have the costume all done for Blade. You can even do the thing with an Avengers where like Thanos wasn't. The Thanos in Avengers post-credit did not look like the Thanos in Infinity War and Endgame. You know what I mean?
And no one cares.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you give me like a coat, like a black coat, I guess, or like some guy's boots and a blade, we did it. I'd be very excited for that post-credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the last one we have to talk about is Eros, who is Harry Styles' character.
Yes.
Thanos' brother. What are your thoughts on that?
Can you imagine being Thanos, looking the way you do, and having Harry Styles as a brother?
Yeah.
What a nightmare. What a nightmare that would be.
I heard or read that Thanos is a deviant or something like that. And that's why he looks weird.
He's an Eternal with the deviant strain or something like that.
Yeah.
At least that's what I read or something, or heard in the comics. Like that's why he kind of looks like that. It's also why he is prone to being a dickhead. So yeah, I think that's where that comes from.
And I really don't like this idea. I feel like with that in mind, and they didn't say that in the post-credit scene, but that's what we looked up. I really don't like that the Eternals are robots, because that means Thanos is like a robot too, you know? Like it's
what is that? Yeah, what are the implications for that? It's weird. That's a good
weird.
point.
It's weird. Yeah, I don't like that. But it is exciting. You got Patton Oswalt as like that goofy character that comes in, and then you have Harry Styles. In our theater, we had like a bunch of ladies in the front. They're like, "Oh my god, it's Harry Styles!" Woo! And I'm like, "Cool. I think he would be a good Eros." Like, I don't know too much about the character except he's like kind of like he loves to love. I guess
isn't that like his power? Like he can just basically he can make you come. Like that's what his power is. And I mean that's cool. I don't know how you're going to do that in the MCU, but cool, great.
I mean, imagine the outrage of making people come when they've already made people mad about like a kiss, naked backs, like that kind of stuff.
I saw a back and now there's jizz all over my Marvel movies. Yeah, I don't want that. I have a few like just kind of like final random little tidbit and thoughts, if that's cool.
Yeah, please.
One, we talked about Superman earlier. I really want Chloe Zhao to make a Superman movie. If it's going to look like this, fucking awesome. I love that.
She said that Icarus was inspired by Zack Snyder's Superman. And I was like, I like that less. Do another one. Make
it better. Like, okay, great. But okay, make it better. For being a movie that was kind of billed as a cosmic movie, there's very little cosmic stuff in it. Like there's some cosmic stuff, but not nearly as much as you would kind of think with Celestials and whatnot. Kumail Nanjiani got ripped for no reason at all.
Yeah.
No reason.
True. Good for him. Looks great.
Looks great. Didn't need to do it. And then my final thought, and this is where I'm going to bring in Celestial Goop. You've got this Celestial that near the end of the movie kind of is starting to be born, but the Eternals win out. And spoiler alert, the heroes win. And now you've got like this kind of dead Celestial body sort of thing kind of coming out of the earth a little bit. And I think what they're going to, I think my theory, which is based on nothing, but I kind of thought about it, is that going forward in the movies, there's going to be like a mining thing on there, or there's going to be a scientific experiment going on with that. And they're going to like extract some celestial goop. And that's how we're going to get either the X-Men or Fantastic Four.
Okay.
I think they're going to do something there where, because we've already been introduced to the fact that people mined Celestials for their brain fluid, because that's what happened in Guardians of the Galaxy and that planet Nowhere.
Right.
So I think they're going to have an aspect to that on Earth where humans are doing it, but because we're humans, we screw up a lot, and they're going to have an era where that's going to introduce mutants or Fantastic Four or
that's cool.
Something.
I like that.
Because you have this thing now, like that's a major thing. Like you have to redraw maps now, because that's like
it's in one of the comics in Avengers comics that I read. the Avengers Tower is from a Celestial's head coming out of the ground. So
okay, cool.
They could do that. I think Agents of Atlantis take over at some point. It's very complicated. Comics are weird.
You could introduce Namor that way.
You can do all of that.
There's a lot of ways to do it. So I think I've heard a few people kind of gripe on like, what the hell is this Celestial now? Like, I like that because that's a whole thing that you can do so much stuff with.
Yeah,
that is exciting. So.
I don't think the end of the movie. I think there's a lot that goes on the end of the movie. I don't think they particularly land well with it because like a few of the Celestials go into space, and then a few of the other Celestials get taken by Arishem, and you're like, wait, what's happening here?
A few of the
Eternals, yeah. And you're like, wait a second, what's happening here? But some people stay on Earth, and Sprite's a human now. It just gets kind of muddy at the end, I find.
It's a little muddy. Yeah, they don't stick it entirely. I like that the team is divided, and I like that it is kind of a cliffhanger of like, is Arishem going to be like, your memories aren't good enough, we're going to destroy Earth now? Like, that's an interesting concept.
Well, he's like, I'm going to monitor this, and if it's not good, judgment. Is coming.
He says he's going to take a look at the memories of the Eternals that he captures, and he's going to judge if humans are worth keeping around. And I like that.
Yeah.
I like that kind of cliffhanger of like, well, he's probably not going to judge us kindly because you shouldn't. So what's that hold for the future? Is that Eternals 2? Because it's kind of the same thing then. I don't know. I think I'm more positive about the ending than I think a lot of other people are because I like how it kind of just leaves things up in the balance.
They're not even convinced they're going to do an Eternals 2. That's what they said. They're like, we'll see. Maybe the Eternals will show up on other stuff, but we might not need a number 2. And I'm like, okay, that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
That's okay.
I like
want
the
to
movie,
see these.
but
I want to see these characters again, and I want to see stuff like this again. But I don't necessarily need another Eternals movie.
No, it was a really interesting like movie to watch, and I think that like diehard Marvel fans should definitely watch it, and I think people who like film should watch it. But I think like casual people, I think this is my final thought on this, is that they might be too confused as to what's happening because it is nerdy as shit.
It is very nerdy. It is very nerdy.
I like that.
Yeah,
but other people will not. Yeah.
I specifically told my wife Shannon, I was like, it's a good thing you didn't come. Like, you wouldn't have hated it, but you would have been like, I can watch. I'll watch this at home over a week.
That's what Laura would do too. I'm quite certain. I think she'd like it for sure, but like, it's not Shang-Chi. Let me tell you what.
No, it's definitely not Shang-Chi.
And people are saying that like Phastos' technology might be the rings, for example. So that could be kind of cool.
Oh, I like that. Rings. That's cool.
That'd be cool, right?
I like that because at the end of Shang-Chi, they're kind of talking with like Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner and whatnot, like where these come from, sort of thing. Like that could be cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like
the
that.
Eternals. Like this movie opens a ton of doors, and I definitely think it does change the landscape of what's to happen. Of course, you got Thanos' brother, you have Celestials, you have all these big beings and like cool powers and like whatever. But yeah, the movies are now like the MCU so getting into the thick of like some weird shit, like the Endgame like saga, the Infinity Saga was so like beginner level nerdy stuff, and now we're getting into like Ebony Blade and the multiverse and like all these other concepts. It's crazy.
Like you can tell it's early on too, because like we went through 3 or 4 phases before we got to the end of the Infinity Saga. Like I kind of feel like they don't even really, and this is okay, they don't know where it's going to go yet. Because
think Galactus has to be the thing.
Oh yeah,
because they have Celestials now. What can beat a Celestial? Galactus, who ate a ton of planets, can beat a Celestial.
Okay. Yeah.
But then how do you have like Shang-Chi fight a Celestial? Like,
just he's like jumping onto a big rock and just punching it real hard. It's just not doing a thing.
It's not going to do a thing. Anyways, Justin, final thoughts on Eternals before we wrap this up.
Yeah, final thoughts. I feel like I shit on this movie a lot in this episode, and while it definitely has its problems, I did really enjoy it. I think my initial rating when probably leaving the theater was probably like 2.5, 3 stars out of 5. I think I'm probably closer to 3.5, 4, honestly. Like the good stuff really is really good. But it's just there's some stuff in there. It's probably 3.5 now. There's just some stuff that's just like, you could have thought about this a little bit more, maybe condensed it a little bit, and you would have had a 4.5 star film for me. So as much as people are shitting on it, I'm really glad to see that the general public seems to enjoy it more than the reviewers are. Like, that makes me happy. I like that.
Fuck those reviewers. Fuck review bombing in general. Like, I hate that stuff. It does not deserve the 40-something% that it's gone on Rotten Tomatoes. I know that doesn't care. Like, people don't care about that, but some people care about that. And I think it's a bad, like, representation of what this movie is. I think, like, this movie's certainly better than Thor Dark World. This movie is certainly better than, I think it's better than Captain Marvel, to be honest. I think it's better than I would say it's middle of the road out of all of the, like, Marvel movies that's come before it. But it does not deserve to be, like, the worst movie ever, I guess.
No, definitely not. It's a good time. It's fun. Yeah. You got to you kind of prepare yourself before going into it, I think, a little bit. Like, okay, I'm in for something a lot. I'm gonna have to pay attention. Maybe turn my phone off. That's the benefit of going to see it in the theaters. Honestly, is like you're kind of forced to pay attention to it, and you'll enjoy it, I think. So
yeah, I think its ambitions outweigh my problems with some of the movie. Like you're talking about, like there's like some misfires and, like, you know, it doesn't always land on some bits, and I can forgive that because they're trying to do so much, and that is worth a lot to me.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, I would give this movie, 3.5 laser beams out of 1 dead deviant, probably. One underdeveloped deviant that gets his head awesomely chopped off by Thena. Amazing moment.
So badass.
So cool. And oh man, when she says the line of, like, they're like, we don't have to fight, Thena, and she's like, yeah, but I always kind of wanted to. I was like, oh my God. I wish Laura would fight with me like that. Our fights always end up with yelling at each other. They did like a sexy fight.
Yeah. It looked good.
It looked good. All right, Justin, before we go, do you have anything to plug for the people at home?
Yeah, you can find all of my nonsense over at Pull the Plug. Again, it's a podcast I host and produce with my wife Shannon and 2 of our friends Justin and Sarah. It's acoustic music based podcast. We run it very much like a radio show. Do a break and story and songs and stuff. It's a good time. We talk a lot about dicks and
your dick. Of course.
Primarily my dick. Yeah. It's a good time. Yeah. So if you want to check that out, head to our website. It's ptppodcast.com. I'd appreciate you checking it out and let me know what you think.
Incredible. You can find the rest of the shows in the Pod Cavern at www.podcavern.com. Check all those shows out and check out Eternals. If you're curious and you're like, I'm not sure, I'd say it's worth it. It's worth going to see. If you're on the fence, just do it. All right, Justin, let's sign out. Episode 99. Oh my God. With your world famous catchphrase.
Keep on shooting those laser beams.
Bye, everyone.
Nailed it.